Chapter 380. The phone call lasted for a total of 37 minutes. It was not far from 12 o'clock. Xianxia turned around with a smile on his handsome face. He apologized naturally and politely, "Sorry for making you wait for so long. And just now, my attitude wasn't very good. I'm sorry." "It's okay. Yiqian just wanted to send this Buddha away. Even sending a 3-year-old home wasn't this tiring." She wasn't angry at all, which meant that she really didn't care. Xianxia pursed his lips and walked over. He sighed in his heart. "Sigh, this is the first time we met? My impression of you is too bad. I have to fix it." As a staff member of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Xianxia was very good at diplomacy. He quickly found a way to fix it. "We met this morning. Do you remember me?" He reached out his hand. His fingers were long and slender, and his fingers were clean and beautiful. "I'm Xianxia. I'm sorry to have taken up so much of your time." Yiqian, who didn't like physical contact, only hesitated for a minute and a half before finally reaching out her hand. He was Principal Chao's nephew. Xianxia could tell from her half a second of hesitation that the student in front of him didn't like physical contact. He immediately released her hand within 3 seconds and maintained his smile. "I don't know my way around. My sense of direction is always left or right. It's like my brain is separated from my body. I always make the wrong choice." It took courage to openly admit one's mistakes to a stranger. Yiqian pursed his lips and smiled. He said calmly, "No one is perfect, but Mr. Qin's sense of direction. It's true that you should have someone by your side at all times." Implicitly keeping unspoken words also represented a person's self-restraint. Xianxia's smile deepened. Just as he was about to speak, the phone in his hand vibrated. He first said, "Sorry?" Then he looked down at his phone. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly again. He said to Yiqian, "It took us almost 40 minutes to get to the office from the school gate. My uncle probably thinks I've gone missing." His clean fingers pressed the answer button. He said in a cool and elegant voice, "I'm at the school Swan Lake. HM? Still here. Okay, I'll be right there. I'm begging you, please don't work while walking. Yiqian still has things to do, so I can't let her follow you around the school." Principal Chao felt that his hair had turned a lot whiter in the past half an hour. It turned out that her name was Yiqian. It was a very simple name that could be easily memorized after being recited once. Around noon, Xianxia did not receive any more calls, and Yiqian finally sent him to his office without a hitch. Principal Chao was already waiting for him at the door. When he saw him, he quickly walked up to him and said, "Why didn't you bring your entourage? If you go missing in such a big provincial capital, how am I going to explain it to your mother?" When Yiqian noticed that something was wrong with his expression, he had already left quietly. A person who was being scolded would not want someone else to watch while they were being scolded, so he knew better than to leave. "I took a work call and lost track of time." Xianxia did not take it to heart. Because he was not good with directions, he had countless entourages since he was young. In the past he had no choice, but now he did not like it. He changed the topic without leaving a trace. "I still have to thank." He turned around to thank Yiqian, but he realized that the girl who was supposed to be behind him had already left. Chapter 381. She left a long time ago. You're lucky to have met her. She's a very responsible girl. She accompanied you for more than 40 minutes at noon. Principal Chao saw that he was still wearing a bow tie and knew that he had rushed over after finishing his work. "Go sit down and relax. I'll arrange a car so we can go out for lunch. What's your schedule in the afternoon? If not, you can go back to the hotel to rest or go out to play. But you have to bring your entourage." Xianxia looked away and smiled at his uncle's nagging. "Okay, I'll be careful. I want to walk around your school in the afternoon. It's fine if I don't go out. This century-old school has beautiful scenery. If I'm tired, I can sit down and relax. As long as I don't walk out of the school, you don't have to worry." Other than his poor sense of direction, Principal Chao was not worried about anything else. "Okay, school just started and I have a lot of things to do. You can walk around the school. When are you flying back to Beijing?" "The day after tomorrow." "I'm not going back to Beijing. I'm going to Germany with the delegation. As a staff member of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Xianxia was rarely in China. He was either abroad or on the plane. Yi Qian pushed open the door and entered the teacher's office. Compared to the 30 degrees outside, the coolness inside swept away the heat. Come sit here. This is Teacher Zhu's desk in our class. Teacher Tong waved her hand and gestured for Yi Qian to sit at the desk next to her. She pointed at the file on the desk and looked at the time. She smiled kindly. The roster is here. Take a look at it yourself. I'm not done with my work yet. I'll go to the cafeteria at 12:30. Okay? Yi Qian smiled and nodded. Okay, you don't have to worry about me. The teachers were very busy on the first day of school. Teacher Tong was the only one in the big office who had not gotten off work for lunch. Yi Qian gently took the roster out of the file and opened it to look at it carefully. The first few lists were of the top students. When he flipped to the 15th page, Yi Ying's photo came into view. Not bad. Not only did her skin become fairer, but her handwriting also improved. He looked at her strengths. Dancing English. Yi Qian raised his eyebrows and smiled playfully. It seemed that she had been working hard on English for the past year or so. She wasn't surprised. In her previous life, when Yi Ying came back from studying abroad, she spoke fluent English in front of her. She didn't know if she would do that in high school. After all, in her previous life, she had only studied in junior high and never sat in class again. Sitting beside Teacher Zhu's desk, Yi Qian flipped through the list page by page. After scanning through the names and photos, he finished flipping through all 60 names within 10 minutes and memorized them. The provincial first high school was indeed a century-old school, and Class 1 was the best of the best. However, there were also some students with poor grades. Resources needed to be allocated reasonably, and the school couldn't put all the good students in the second class into one class. It could only be said that the average score of the first class was higher than the other classes. When Teacher Tong was done with her work, she looked up and saw Yi Qian flipping through a high school math textbook. She glanced at the roster that was still in its original place and smiled at the girl who was engrossed in her book. Why are you reading a textbook? Take a look at the roster. There are photos in it. You can also get to know your classmates. She thought that Yi Qian wasn't flipping through the book. I've finished looking through the roster. I didn't want to disturb you because you were busy, so I picked up Teacher Zhu's textbook to take a look. Yi Qian closed the math textbook that the teacher had prepared for class. She didn't tell the teacher about her relationship with Yi Ying. Chapter 382. When she was working, Teacher Tong wore a pair of plain glasses tied with a black string. She took off her glasses and looked at Yi Qian with a slight smile. It seems like you intentionally hid your true strength during last year's intensive training. Yi Qian, you know how to hide your true strength. That's really rare. To be able to remember the names and faces of 60 students, including herself, was not something an ordinary person could do. At the very least, she had never encountered someone like that in all her years of teaching. Furthermore, she was also curious as to how a girl who had just turned 16 in May could maintain a calm heart that was calmer than an adult's, restrain her sharpness, and walk down the path step by step in a solid manner. Yi Qian rarely talked about her family matters. Faced with Teacher Tong's inquiry, she thought for a moment before taking out her own registration form. She pointed to her parents' column and said with a slightly restrained voice, "I'm different from the other students here. I have to know how to protect myself." Sometimes, hiding one's true strength doesn't mean that one is weak. Hiding one's true strength is also a form of self-protection. Furthermore, as long as I can maintain a certain level, not be too abrupt, and not drop the ball at critical moments, I should be able to get along better with my classmates in class. This was Yi Qian's way of survival in both lifetimes. It was also the way to get along with others, especially with students. In an environment where there was competition, hidden strength, and even small groups, it was a good thing to hide one's true strength. Her words left Teacher Tong speechless for a long time. After a while, she sighed. "Yi Qian, I just want to say that I have no regrets in my teaching career for the past few decades to have a student like you before I retire. However, child, you have to remember that the fittest survive. This is one of the mottos of century-old famous schools. Here, The competition begins the moment you step foot into this school. It's the same with academic results, especially in Class 1, where results speak louder than words. Your good grades may attract jealousy, but you have to remember that there is another side to human nature, and that is admiration for the strong. Teacher Tong was a virtuous teacher. She did not want to see Yi Qian suppress her true strength to accommodate others. She should not hide her true strength at such a young age. Young people should live a carefree and unrestrained life, unrestrained and unrestrained. If they still had to be careful in school, they would have to be even more careful when they step out into society. Society is a big environment, and there's nothing wrong with being careful. However, school is different. This is a place for students to be happy, so there's no need to be careful. The bigger the stage, the more capable you are. Yi Qian, remember what Teacher Tong said today. The provincial first high school is a big stage for students to freely roam the sky. You don't have to hide your strength. It's your ability to study well. How can your classmates say such things? Moreover, even if there is, you don't have to take it to heart. The strong are like a halo. If there are people who worship you, there will be people who are jealous. The teacher and the student talked in the office for half an hour before they left. If Principal Chen and Uncle Jen taught Yi Qian how to be self-reliant, then Miss Tong taught Yi Qian how to be mellow, roundabout, and gentle. The combination of hardness and gentleness, Zhang Qi had a strong heart and a soft heart. In the days to come, when Yi Qian relied on his own strength to reach the peak of military power step by step, Teacher Tong was one of the people he thanked the most in interviews. Chapter 383. After lunch, Teacher Tong went back to her office while Yi Qian went to look for Principal Chen to get his luggage. Principal Chen was busy with his work. Other than when school started, he had nothing else to do. He liked working in the library. Also, he was in poor health. In order to live a few more years and see how far the girl he personally groomed could go, Principal Chen had started to take care of his body. A new batch of books had arrived at the school. There were books on astronomy, geography, ancient and modern. A century-old school would always have more resources than other schools. This could be seen from the corner of the books. 2 hours later, Yi Qian, who felt like a scholar, took her luggage and walked to the dormitory. The campus at 4 o'clock was much quieter than it was in the morning. Walking along the stone path with tall camphor trees on both sides, Yi Qian walked to the left side of Swan Lake and arrived at the female dormitory. When he walked to Swan Lake, he saw someone sitting leisurely on a stone bench under a weeping willow. His long arms were lazily draped over the back of the bench as he admired the beautiful scenery of Swan Lake. Yi Qian thought for a moment and walked over. He was an old acquaintance. If she really walked around him this time, she didn't know how he would tease her the next time they met. "You didn't walk around me? Little fox, I'm surprised again." Xia Jinyuan looked like he had eyes on the back of his head. Before Yi Qian even got close, he turned his head to look at her. The golden sun in the west was variegated. As the willow swayed, it gently shone on his handsome face. It was half bright and half dark, making his expression look dark and unreadable. Seeing that Yi Qian was still carrying his luggage, he stood up and said, "I need you to go out and help me with something. It's serious. Do you want to put your luggage in my car? Or maybe put it back in the dormitory?" Although there was a faint smile on his face, there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Yi Qian already believed that he was talking about serious business. It was indeed serious business. If you're in a hurry, you can leave immediately. If you're not in a hurry, I can leave my luggage in the dormitory first. Yi Qian picked up his rather light luggage. There wasn't much inside, only a few sets of clothes. After waiting for about half an hour, Xia Jinyuan took the luggage that had passed through his hands several times today, but he still didn't put it back in the dormitory. He raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Then take it with you. Maybe you can change it at night. There's a possibility that I won't be going back to school tonight. Let me know in advance." She wouldn't have any objections to sleeping outside, even if he suggested sleeping by the side of the road or under a bridge. When they got back into the car, Xia Jinyuan's phone started ringing. He glanced at Yi Qian before answering the call. "Come over in 20 minutes. Book a hotel in advance. If it's too late, sleep in the hotel. Yiqian did not ask what was going on. She was used to others speaking first. The car was parked at the entrance of the traffic bureau. Before the car was parked, two police officers in dark green uniforms ran over. Their expressions were solemn. The suspect has strong anti-reconnaissance abilities. His methods are brutal. He erased all possible traces of the crime at the scene of the crime. Get all the sky eyes in the province, including the ones at the scene of the crime. We don't have much time. We need to find the suspect as soon as possible. As soon as they got out of the car, one of the police officers quickly told them everything they knew about the suspect. The other police officer led the way. The four of them hurriedly appeared in the monitoring room of the province's Sky Eyes system. First, get the Sky Eyes at the scene of the crime. Also, get the Sky Eyes at the two nearby crossroads. Xia Jinyuan's eyes darkened as he made the arrangements. Then, he said to Yiqian, "You have a good memory and are highly recognizable. I've prepared a pen and paper for you. Just draw whatever you find on the paper." Chapter 384. Our job is to assist the investigation team. We just need to find clues. Since the successful career woman had asked for his help, he had to help her. Actually, it didn't matter if Yiqian didn't come, but he couldn't resist his desire to see her. Yiqian had already looked at him several times. Did a special forces soldier need to be involved in solving a case? I was asked to do this, so I couldn't refuse. Xia Jinyuan, who was deliberately 2 steps behind, quickly leaned forward and said to the little girl, who looked calm but was actually asking him with her eyes, "If I don't ask you to come with me, how can we be together tonight?" Yiqian instantly realized that the seriousness in his eyes was all an act. He didn't know what he was going to do before he arrived at the traffic bureau. "Xia Jinyuan, can you be more serious? Look, you're thinking too much again. What do you think we're going to do tonight?" Xia Jinyuan's lips curled up slightly. He straightened his back and walked into the surveillance room that was pushed open by 2 policemen in an elegant and cold manner. "Follow me. We only have 5 hours. After 5 hours, we need to go to another place." He had stirred up her calm emotions, but in an instant, he put them down and started talking about serious matters. The speed of the change made Yiqian's chest heave up and down a few times. He took a deep breath before walking in. There were quite a lot of Sky Eyes in the provincial capital. Under Xia Jinyuan's instructions, Yiqian began to put aside his distractions and immerse himself in work. The heavy door of the control room that was not locked opened halfway. A tall man wearing a slim suit jacket and a pair of slim trousers of the same color stood at the door. His gaze fell lightly on the slender student's body. Was this the high school student that Sixth Brother had mentioned? "Secretary Xia, please tell Changsheng that our bureau will definitely solve the case within 3 days." A uniformed police officer stood beside the woman and said seriously, "We will not give the suspect a chance to escape from our province." The woman's makeup was exquisite, and she looked capable and experienced. Even though she was standing in front of the bureau chief, her aura was not suppressed at all. She nodded and smiled. "Okay, I will definitely tell Changsheng." Serial crimes wanted nationwide, fled to the southern province's provincial capital, and committed a violent murder. If this case was not solved, Chang province would not be able to sleep peacefully. This case had even alarmed the capital. Sixth sister was here, and she had asked him to do things several times. Since she was here, she could forget about leaving quickly. No matter what, he had to help her solve this big problem. Wasn't finding clues his forte? The question was, why did he bring that high school student with him? The woman, whose emotions had already gone back and forth a few times, frowned without batting an eyelid. She did not disturb the 2 people who were working hard and assisting the bureau. She turned around and left quietly. 178 centimeters in height, 75 kilograms in weight, short hair. After nearly 4 hours, Yiqian drew a man's head on a piece of paper. The 6 screens were all frozen. It was either the man's legs, the man's back, or an extremely blurry front. Xia Jinyuan leaned forward slightly and slowly explained the situation on his side to Yiqian. He should be nearsighted. Occasionally he would squint his eyes. He's not used to wearing glasses, but he would never leave his glasses. Hence, there was a trace of glasses on the pool of blood at the scene. Chapter 385. Their chairs were slightly closer to each other. In order to make it easier for Yi Qian to draw, Xia Jinyuan had already left his chair as he spoke. He half-squatted beside Yi Qian and said, "After entering the southern province, your hair has to be cut. Draw one with hair to your ears, and the other with hair to your ears." Yi Qian agreed with him. The 6 blurry portraits were fixed on the 6 screens. The back of the first portrait was indeed slightly longer, and the hair to his ears in the 5th portrait when he was wearing a mask. She sat in the middle, and several police officers stared intently at the pencil she was drawing on the paper. As she dictated and finalized, the features of a man with thin, even refined features were drawn on the paper. Xia Jinyuan picked up the completed portrait and said, "I can't say that this one is 100% similar, but it's at least 90% similar." The criminal may very well refuse to admit it. Regardless of whether he admits it or not, let's arrest him first. He handed the portrait to the police officers, and Yi Qian began to draw the criminal's height, proportions, and even the shadows bit by bit. Some police officers hurriedly left with the portrait, while the rest of the people held their breaths and looked at the high school student whose drawing skills were comparable to the professional police officers in the brigade. From the moment she picked up the pen to the moment she started drawing on the paper, there was not a single pause. It was as if she had seen the criminal before. The portrait had already been sent to the relevant departments for matching. After Yi Qian finished drawing the entire portrait, the police officers guarding the matching portrait rushed into the surveillance room like the wind. Found it. Finding the criminal meant that Yi Qian and Xia Xiaoyuan's work was complete. The two of them, who were helping each other out of friendship, actually only needed to find some clues for the police. With so many videos, so many celestial eyes, and so many faces coming and going in a city every day, how difficult was it to only find one criminal? The two of them spent more than 4 hours to find the criminal. They had indeed done the Southern Province Public Security Bureau a huge favor, and the head of the Southern Province was relieved. "Xiao Xia, call your brother over for a meal." Chang Sheng was acquainted with Commander-in-Chief Xia and had met Xia Jinyuan a few times. This time, he had done him a huge favor, so it was only right for him to express his gratitude. As the head secretary, he had to do all aspects of his work. He even had to carefully arrange a meal. However, this time, there was really no need to arrange it. "You're welcome." He even brought a child over. "I'm afraid that he has to send the child home." Chang Sheng thought that it was a child from family Xia. To solve the case within 48 hours. There must not be a second case in our province. Yi Qian. When they walked out of the traffic station, it was already late at night. It was almost 10 o'clock from 5:30 p.m. Yi Jian looked at the man who was walking in a hurry and caught up with him. "Captain Xia, it's still early." "Yes, I'm not going back." The moon was bright. Xia Jinyuan stood under the silver light with a faint smile on his face. His deep and dark eyes reflected the moonlight. When he smiled, the light in his eyes moved slightly. He was even more charming than during the day. "Why are you retreating? Are you retreating without going back to the hotel? Are you going to follow me back to the hotel?" Yi Qian rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. He said helplessly, "Captain Xia, I'm not in the mood to joke with you. It's 10 o'clock now. I have to go back to the dormitory. Tomorrow I have to go to class. Have you forgotten that I'm still a student? High school students are under the most pressure. They can't be distracted." Chapter 386. Even when she felt helpless, her small face revealed a sly look. She seemed to have given in to him, but in reality, she knew very well what she was insisting on. Xia Jinyuan walked 2 steps back and stood in front of her. His tall and slender body happened to block the moonlight, completely enveloping her under his shadow. The moonlight was hazy and the street lights were dense. In the dim light, he raised his hand and gently patted the top of her head. He gently said, "You don't want to stay in school on Saturdays and Sundays, right? Do you want a place to train?" I'll give you 10 seconds to consider whether you want to go with me or not. He looked at her. Even though the light was dim, his gaze was still accurately locked onto her face. There was a smile and understanding in his eyes. Yiqian gently sighed and smiled faintly. I can't reject your suggestion. It doesn't even take 10 seconds. I've already made the decision to go with you within a second. Let's go, Captain Xia. His gaze was very warm, and there was a charm in his deep eyes that made her believe in him without a doubt. Yiqian did not think that she had a reason to reject him. The city was still noisy after 10 o'clock. The car left the traffic bureau and headed in another direction. Xia Jinyuan said as he drove, in the future, when you go to the provincial military base on Saturdays and Sundays, I'll ask someone to look after you. First, you'll have to identify people and apply for a pass. Come over after school on Friday and come back on Sunday afternoon. Little Fox, although the provincial military base is not as big as the one in Fujian town, trust me, there's no shortage of elite soldiers here. She was destined to join the military, so it was better for her to integrate into the environment in advance. Moreover, he could tell that she was a person who did not like to rely on others. In that case, he would give her a chance to use her own abilities to open up her own network of contacts. In order to obtain a cunning fox, one had to seriously attack to be able to conquer her. Yiqian turned sideways and looked seriously at the man who had made everything convenient for her. Looking at his exquisite, jade-like face, she wanted to ask, "Why are you so good to me?" The words were on the tip of her tongue, but she could not say them. Her throat felt like it was stuck with thorns. It was as if she said those words, it would stab her throat and cause her to bleed. Because she did not want to accept his kindness to her. Because she had no way to repay him. What's wrong? Do you want to sleep? Xia Jinyuan, who had been looking at her from the corner of his eye, glanced at her and said elegantly, "What's on your mind? Or do you have any questions?" "Oh, or you want to know why I'm bringing you to the provincial military, right?" Her words made Yiqian clench her fists. Her heart rose to her throat. Even though she appeared calm on the surface, her hair had already tensed up. Never say anything that would give her a headache. He looked at her again as if he had seen through her nervousness and explained with a smile, "I called Uncle Jen before I came here, and he asked if it would be convenient for him to take you to the provincial military base. I won't reject such a small matter. You are indeed a seedling. Even the regiment commander and political commissar in the army have unanimously approved of you. If I bring you to the provincial military district, I think that even if I don't show up, the regiment commander and the political commissar will go to the provincial capital to mention it." His explanation made Yiqian loosen her clenched fists. She secretly heaved a long sigh of relief. So that's how it is. Outside the car window, the flickering light from the street lamps flashed past. He could clearly see the relief on her face. She was indeed a young lady. Although she was intelligent, she was still young. She was extremely nervous whenever he moved, as if she was afraid that he would say something that she could not bear. Chapter 387. Grandpa Jen is just worried that I won't be able to take care of myself when I'm outside. Old people worry a lot. Captain Xia, I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble. Without those ambiguous words, Yiqian relaxed and smiled. If Captain Xia needs any help from me in the future, I won't refuse. Just like today, I'm happy to help. She always believed whatever he said unconditionally. Xia Jinyuan's sexy lips curved into a gentle smile. It was the only tenderness behind the iron-willed soldier. Silly girl, if I ask you to go through a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, you won't refuse? Of course. Yiqian answered without hesitation. His expression was solemn. I believe in you, Captain Xia. Even if there is a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, you and your comrades will definitely be the first to rush in. She trusted him so much and was so sure that she didn't say any excessive compliments. When he saw her bright and burning eyes, Xia Jinyuan only felt that his chest was so hot that even his heartbeat sped up. After a long time, he laughed softly and sighed. You really are a silly girl. He focused on driving and no longer looked at her. Yi Qian didn't see the indulgence in his eyes that could make one drown in it and not want to wake up. It was indulgence only for her. Silly girl, you trust me so much and treat me as the person you trust the most. How can I refuse everything from you? How can I bear to let go? Even if I have to wait, I'm willing. Yi Qian didn't go back to school that night. By the time he left the provincial military base, it was already midnight. He checked into a hotel not far from the school. In the middle of the night, a grown man brought a young girl to a hotel room. The receptionist couldn't help but take a few glances. First, she glanced at Yi Qian coldly. When she looked at Xia Jinyuan, it was as if she had taken stimulants. She said sweetly, "Hello sir, I'm not interested in who you are. I know you're the receptionist of the hotel." Even a small receptionist was looking at his little fox with a strange gaze. She really deserved a lesson. Xia Jinyuan glanced at the receptionist coldly. His arrogant aura and cold tone made the receptionist's face turn pale. He glanced at the electronic signboard for the remaining rooms and said coldly, 2 luxury suites. My sister likes cleanliness. I'll give you 10 minutes to check if the rooms are clean. Yi Qian reached out and tugged at his shirt, hinting that there was no need for that. There were too many people in this world who were biased. She had been through too much, so she didn't take this little disrespect to the receptionist to heart. She only cared about the gazes of the people she cared about. The gazes of unimportant people had nothing to do with her. However, she still had something she wanted to say. Glancing at the receptionist coldly, Yi Jian took the 2 room cards that the receptionist handed over with trembling hands. With a cold smile at the corner of her mouth, she said softly, Miss Lu Zhen went to Huajun Hotel with a man who was less than 1.6 meters tall 2 weeks ago. After leaving the next day, she went to Anxi Tea House with a man who was as fat as a pig that night. Then she changed to another man. As soon as she said the first sentence, the receptionist's knees went weak. By the time Yi Qian told her which men she had checked into rooms with in the past 2 weeks, her face was as white as a sheet. She leaned against the marble counter. Chapter 388. That was not all. Yi Qian added, I have to tell you that the man who went to Huajun Hotel went to the hospital yesterday. He didn't look too good. I think there's something wrong with his body. Miss Lu Zhen, I suggest you get a checkup too. At the front, she could still lean against the counter to support herself, but at the back, Yi Jian's words made the receptionist fall to the ground. The staff on duty next to her did not know what happened. She quickly walked over and apologized to Yi Qian, then picked up the walkie-talkie to call for security. Yi Qian said it in a voice that only the 2 of them could hear, so as to preserve the front desk's dignity. After entering the elevator, Xia Jinyuan chuckled. You really can't afford to lose out. No wonder Uncle Chen let you come out alone. Even if you want to lose out, you have to see what kind of loss it is. I was just telling the front desk the truth. Don't think so much about it. Does she think everyone is the same as her? Yi Qian winked playfully and smiled. Besides, I was just reminding her out of kindness. The little fox reminded him out of goodwill, but the little fox's words shocked everyone. After pressing the floor button, Xia Jinyuan sighed. I can use what I saw in the heavenly eye to teach someone a lesson. Little fox, it seems like I can't leave any evidence behind in the future. Where did the front desk go? Who did she go with? She just arrived in the provincial capital this morning. The only explanation was that she took a look at the heavenly eye and memorized it. Her memory was extraordinary, and her brain storage capacity was also large enough. Would the military allow her to become a nobody? Obviously, it was impossible. The military would know her whereabouts and movements at all times. Just like in the desert, after confirming her identity, the tower command center did not make any further moves. As for Yi Jian, her intuition told her that it was best not to continue talking about this topic, that she couldn't tell whether it was true or false. She lowered her head and pretended to yawn. I'm so sleepy. I want to sleep early. The elevator door opened with a ding. As soon as she finished speaking, she walked out nimbly. You're that sleepy? Would you like a cup of coffee to refresh yourself? Or we can have a heart-to-heart talk in the room. Xia Jinyuan, who walked out of the elevator gracefully, smiled. His low voice seemed to have magic in the silent night as it drifted lazily and seductively behind her. "I'm in the room next to yours. If you want to chat, feel free to do so." Yiqian quickened his footsteps and rushed to his room. He swiped his card and entered before slamming the door shut behind him. The dangerous man with a bad smell was back. She patted her chest lightly and then slapped her forehead in annoyance. How rude. She didn't even say, "Good night." She composed herself and opened the door again. Xia. When he opened the door, he saw a black shadow standing at the door. He was so shocked that he let out an "uh." His subconscious reaction was naturally to punch the black shadow's chin. "You opened the door just to beat me up?" The black figure, which was Major Xia Jinyuan, reacted even faster. He stepped sideways and avoided Yiqian's fist. He looked at her with a smile. "I just came over to say good night, and I almost got beaten up." In the middle of the night, facing a dangerous yet elegant man, Yiqian stopped at the door and said awkwardly, "Sorry, Captain Xia, I didn't mean to hit you. Also good night. See you tomorrow." Chapter 389. The door slammed shut again, as if trying to escape from the lecture. Outside the door, Xia Jinyuan gently rubbed his eyebrows with his slender fingers. He looked helpless, but his eyes were no longer as cold as when he faced the receptionist. Instead, his eyes were filled with gentleness. "Silly girl, if I really want to come in, can a door stop me?" he whispered with a smile. He just wanted to tease her. Thinking of the scene at the front desk just now, Xia Jinyuan's eyes, which had been soft a second ago, suddenly turned cold in the next second. If the receptionist could casually guess the relationship between the two of them, it was hard to guarantee that the people outside would do the same. There might even be rumors spreading. It seemed that Little Fox had made the right decision to keep her distance from him. He left immediately after the holidays, so he naturally wouldn't hear any rumors. But Little Fox was different. This was where she would be living for the next 2 years. He would appear from time to time and interact with her in an ambiguous manner. After he left, all the rumors would be shouldered by Little Fox alone. He only wanted to spend more time with Little Fox, but he didn't consider that his decision would bring trouble to Little Fox in her life. The sound of running water in the shower stopped after a while. The door opened and a pair of strong and slender legs stepped out. As a white shadow flitted past, a white towel wrapped around Xia Jinyuan's strong and narrow waist. His phone on the bedside table had already rung several times. His hair was wet and his body was covered in fine water droplets. He picked up a towel to dry his hair, took off his shoes and walked over. The military man who came out of the shower was indeed sexy. The lines of his muscles were perfect, as if they were God's masterpiece. Every part of him was perfect and extremely seductive. When he sat down, his waist muscles stretched out sexy curves, showing off the strength that a man should have. "It's so late and you're still awake?" He spoke in a low and deep voice, with a hint of moisture in his voice. He was as lazy as a noble walking in the countryside, seducing innocent and beautiful village girls. "You're not sleeping, but I'm going to sleep." "Would you be able to sleep if there was a grown woman beside you?" The woman's voice came. She was Xia Jinyuan's cousin and also the secretary of the governor of a province. She was a strong woman. Xia Jinyuan sneered and replied lazily, "Xia Yiwei, you took the time to go to the transportation bureau and then rushed back. You sure are busy." How could he not notice that someone was brazenly sizing up his Little Fox behind him? "No matter how busy I am, I can't stop myself from wanting to see what the underage girl that young Master Xia is thinking about looks like." Xia Yiwei's legs were casually propped up on the study table in her house. Between her fingers was a long and thin lady's cigarette. The red dots were just halfway through smoking. Xia Jinyuan understood what she was implying. He smirked and said, "I'm just protecting an underage girl now. I'm not so horny as to establish a bad relationship with an underage girl." "Oh, so you know, I'll hang up then. Goodbye." He hung up the phone quickly. Xia Yiwei was relieved to know that he understood. Xia Jinyuan always had a sense of propriety. If he said he didn't, then he really didn't. What she didn't know was that even if Xia Jinyuan really did have such thoughts, He still had to ask Yi Qian for permission. At 6 o'clock the next day, Yi Qian arrived at school. Sitting in the car, Xia Jinyuan's right hand on the handbrake had secretly tightened countless times. He had said that he would come back to collect interest, but in the end, after thinking about it for a long time last night, he still held back because he was worried about her life in school. Chapter 390. Captain Xia, I'll get off first. Goodbye. Hearing that the car door was unlocked, Yi Qian immediately unlocked the door and got out of the car. Just as she leaned to the side, her wrist was grabbed by a strong hand. She looked back at her wrist and frowned in confusion. Captain Xia, you're still? Yi Qian felt something pressing down on her. With one of her hands held, she could only feel a refreshing mint scent. Like an apple in Eve's hand, she couldn't resist its temptation. There was a hint of coolness on his belt, followed by a warm kiss that gently landed on her forehead. He stayed there for a long time, so long that the skin on her forehead was burning. Okay, you can get out of the car. Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting upright again, saw that there was only confusion in her eyes. She didn't reject him. Feeling warm in his heart, he chuckled. This is my interest. I'm back to collect interest, little fox. He came all the way to the desert and chased her all the way here, but he still missed her. He had to collect interest. Yi Qian was almost running away. She grabbed her luggage and walked faster and faster. Only when she reached the school gate did she slowly stop. She turned to look at the car that hadn't left yet and the man who had gotten out of the car. Yi Qian's forehead burned even hotter. She pursed her lips stubbornly. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything and turned to enter the school. Xia Jinyuan, who was standing beside the car, had a faint smile on his face. His deep eyes watched his little fox enter the campus until she slowly disappeared from his sight. He blinked his unfathomable eyes and drove away in a good mood. The original interest was her first kiss. Today, he took a step back and left her with an emotionless kiss. The effect was unexpectedly good. It was a good thing that she didn't resist. It was normal for her to be confused. His little fox had never had any experience in relationships. When it came to a wolf like him, tsk, he had no choice but to rely on his feelings. At 6 o'clock in the morning, there were only students who were used to morning exercises. Yi Qian was afraid that his roommates would not be awake yet, so he went to the teacher's office to wait for Teacher Tong to come over. Then they would go to the classroom together. In less than half an hour, Teacher Tong and Teacher Zhu walked over while discussing something in low voices. Yi Qian waited for the two teachers to come closer before he greeted them politely. You came so early? Did you sleep well last night? Teacher Tong, who knew what Yi Qian had been up to yesterday, quickly took out her keys and opened the office door. Behind him, Teacher Zhu said sternly, there will be a test this morning. Yi Qian, you have to show your skills. I will announce the results in the afternoon. This was the usual practice of the provincial No. 1 middle school. They would start the exam on the first day of school to remind all the students that the summer vacation was over and the new semester had begun. It was time to settle down. Hearing this, Teacher Tong turned around with a smile and said, Teacher Zhu, don't scare the students with your serious face. Then she said to Yi Qian, don't be in a hurry to put your luggage back in the dormitory. After the morning self-study session, come to the classroom with me. Teacher Zhu glanced at Yi Qian, whose expression did not change. It was rare for him to smile in front of the students. He said with a smile, this student is bold and murderous. He even eliminated the foreign contestants. Why would he be afraid of an exam? Teacher Tong, I will switch with you for the language and math test today. I will take the first two classes first. It's early in the morning, let's wake them up. Yi Qian listened to the two teachers talking about how to wake the students up as soon as possible. He quietly flipped through the new textbook for the second semester of high school. Chapter 391. At 7 o'clock, the students who were not in the school dormitory began to enter the school. Like other classes, Year 2 Class 1 of the provincial first high school started to get to know each other in the new semester. Hello, I'm Ying. Nice to meet you. Yi Ying, who took the initiative to sit at the first table by the podium, started to introduce herself. She was pretty and had good grades. Her classmates had more or less heard of her name. Hearing that, they also started to introduce themselves in private. Some of the students were already classmates in year 1, so they got to know each other without any introductions. There were also a few students in year 1 like Yi Ying. However, when they saw that she only cared about getting to know other students, 2 girls showed a trace of disdain in their eyes. They lowered their heads and whispered, "She's still the same as before. She's just a butterfly. That's her ability. We can't learn it. She's a flower in the student council." Then, they saw her walk to the first-place boy in year 1 and introduce herself with a smile. The 2 girls rolled their eyes. Ying had always been good at pretending in front of boys. Not only did the 2 girls look down on her, but another girl also looked down on her. She said to her year 1 classmates, "Do you see that girl? She's my junior high classmate. You guys need to be more careful in the future. She looks good, but she's full of bad intentions. Don't take her words lightly." Ever since Jiasin saw Yi Ying, she had rolled her eyes countless times. In terms of popularity, she was more popular than Yi Ying because of her tomboyish personality. At least in year 1 of high school, she had never quarreled with her classmates, nor had she schemed against anyone in secret. When the students heard that, they all nodded lightly. When Yi Ying was talking to the first-place boy in year 1, she turned her gaze and saw Jiasin whispering to a few other classmates. With cold eyes, she smiled and said something to the boy, then walked over with light steps. "Hey, Jiasin, I didn't expect to be in the same class in high school again. You're my only classmate in middle school and high school. Come, let's shake hands and celebrate." It was easy to leave a good impression with a coquettish and polite attitude. Jiasin, who did not expect her to have the cheek to walk over, grinned and stood up naturally. She smiled and said, "I didn't expect it either. Please guide me in the future." She wanted to embarrass her on the first day? No way. Yi Ying's smile. Based on her understanding of Jiasin's temper, she should have been angry. "Look at my old classmate. She doesn't even know what to say if I'm a little more enthusiastic." Jiasin took the opportunity to checkmate him and quickly retracted her hand. "All right, let's just be indifferent and pass through high school peacefully. Don't ever bump into him in the same university again. How embarrassing would that be?" Yi Ying, who had suddenly fallen into a disadvantageous position, came back to her senses. She frowned and looked at Jiasin, who had become smarter in front of her. After a while, she smiled and said, "Yes, if we meet again in the same university, how can I get to know other students?" S. That's right. Too embarrassing. Clock, S's, years, S. Looking for trouble on the first day of school. At this moment, Ying knew that she couldn't embarrass Jiasin, so she smiled and turned around. She lowered her eyes to hide the coldness in her eyes. "Wait and see. I won't let Jiasin off easily." Chapter 392. Class 1 was a class with more boys than girls. There were 60 students in the class, 46 boys and 14 girls. The science class had always been the opposite of the liberal arts class. Yi Ying and Jiasin were both good-looking, so some boys had been secretly paying attention to them. Someone said, "There are 60 students. Our class is still missing one." The time for the morning self-study session was approaching. The empty desks in the class were filled one by one. Soon, only the desks near the door were empty. The rest of the students had already arrived. Yeah, there are only 59 students now. Who else is not here? There are still 4 minutes to the morning self-study session. How bold of them to come on time on the first day of school. Until the morning self-study session bell rang, the empty desks near the door were still empty. A student muttered softly, "Are they sick? The teacher will be angry if they're late on the first day." Ying glanced at them and sneered. Class 1 was very competitive and had the most top students. If someone became the focus of the teacher's attention on the first day, it was equivalent to having someone at the bottom. Soon, footsteps were heard. The student sitting at the back near the door was bold. He quickly looked over and saw Teacher Tong walking over with a girl with a smile. She's here. It's a girl. Damn, I can only see a pair of calves. Her skin is dazzling white. She must be a beauty. Really? Quick, sit down. Shut up. Teacher Tong is our big sister. Don't bully her. Soon, there was no other sound in the classroom except for the sound of books being flipped. This showed how strong the self-control of the students in the class was. Teacher Tong did not let Yi Qian go in immediately. Instead, she went into the classroom first. Seeing that all the students were looking down at their textbooks and no one was whispering to each other, she walked to the podium and joked, "All of you can hold it in. If you don't whisper, I think it's not normal." As soon as she spoke, all the students in the class took a deep breath. The bolder ones laughed and said, "Isn't it time for class? We're all good students who abide by the rules. We definitely won't whisper. Right? I saw you sticking your head out of the classroom to see if I was here." The one who spoke was the boy leaning against the door of the classroom. Teacher Tong did not criticize him. She smiled kindly and said, "It's the first day of class, so we're not familiar with each other. Let's introduce ourselves during the morning self-study." Seeing that the class was bustling with noise and excitement, Teacher Tong raised her hands to silence the whole class. "First, let's welcome a new student who has just joined our class. You must have heard of this student's name, but you have never seen her in person. Come, let's give a round of applause to welcome our new classmate." It turned out that he was not late, but a transfer student. Amidst the applause, Yi Qian stood at the door of the classroom with his textbook. He first bowed politely to Teacher Tong, then to all the students in the class. "Yi Qian, why are you here?" Amidst the applause, someone suddenly stood up from her seat and shouted in a sharp and shrill voice, "Why are you here?" It was Yi Ying. She was the only student in the class who stood up. Her pretty features were contorted into a ferocious expression at this moment. She even raised her hand and pointed a finger at Yi Jian. She was shocked and angry at the same time, and her face was filled with disbelief. Her voice was very loud and stood out amidst the applause. The girls at the same table frowned and tugged at her skirt. "What are you doing, Ying? We're all looking at you." Chapter 393. Everyone in the class was seated. Yi Ying was the only one who suddenly stood up like a madwoman. Her voice was so shrill that even the applause couldn't cover it. The students sitting behind her only heard her shrill voice, but the students who were seated just happened to be able to see her expression were all frightened by her ferocious appearance. "Oh my God, this Yi Ying is so scary. So scary, she's just like the evil witches in the Western novels. One second she's gentle and kind, the next she's vicious and vicious. Oh my God, her facial features are all twisted. How can she still be pretty?" The boys were concerned about beauty, while the girls were concerned about good and evil. The applause in the front slowly stopped when they saw Yi Ying's ferocious appearance. The applause at the back also gradually died down when Yi Ying suddenly stood up and didn't sit down for a long time. "What's wrong? What did Ying do? What did she scream just now? I didn't hear it clearly." "Me neither. I just suddenly stood up and pointed my finger at the new student. I don't know what happened." "Stop talking, Teacher Tong doesn't look too good." The originally enthusiastic atmosphere in the class was disturbed by Yi Ying's crazy outburst. The students who didn't know what happened looked at each other, and then looked at Teacher Tong's serious expression. They all fell silent. The classroom suddenly became extraordinarily quiet. Yi Ying, who had a fierce look in her eyes, trembled violently under the secret tugging of her deskmate, and slowly came to her senses. The moment she woke up, Yi Ying felt that her vision was blacking out. She saw that all the students were looking at her strangely. It was a look of rejection, and even disgust. What did she just do? What did she just say? Yi Ying, who couldn't help but tremble, tried to relax her body and squeeze out a smile to explain her gaffe just now. But the more she wanted to relax, the more she couldn't. The more she wanted to smile, the more her face twisted. It was strange, like a withered vine, brandishing its claws on the broken wall. It was especially ferocious. Just when the atmosphere was a little stiff, the sound of desks and chairs moving came from the back of the classroom. "Oh my God!" and Jiasun, whose brain was long enough, recovered from her stupor. In an instant, she jumped up as if there was a spring in her shoe. She said in surprise, "My classmate Jian, you hid it from me for so long." This time, Jiasun became the second student to stand up. The difference was that her happy face was a sharp contrast to Yi Ying's ferocious look. She didn't stop there. Instead, she said incoherently to Teacher Tong, "Teacher Tong, Teacher Tong, I know you, I know you. We were in the same class in junior high school." Idol of the class. Classmate, if you continue to introduce yourself, you won't be introducing yourself like a junior high school classmate. Teacher Tong did not scold her. Instead, she gestured for her to sit down first. There's no hurry. Every student has a chance to introduce themselves. While Teacher Tong was speaking, the girl sitting at the same table as Ying had a dark expression on her face. She tugged at the corner of Yi Ying's skirt and said angrily, "Sit down." Then she muttered, "Why am I so unlucky to be sitting at the same table with you on the first day?" This was not the result Yi Ying wanted. If she sat down now, she would lose. Her classmates would hate her, and stay away from her. Chapter 394. She did not sit down. Instead, she placed her hands on the edge of the desk and squeezed out a stiff smile. "I'm sorry, I was surprised because Yi Qian is my older sister. She ran away from home for a year and did not contact her family. That's why I was so surprised when I saw her." His hands, which were propped up against the desk, exerted all their strength until the back of his hands turned pale. Even his veins were exposed one by one. Yi Qian raised his eyebrows. He did not say anything, but his attitude explained everything. Ying was still the same. However, her ability to speak with hidden meanings had improved. She said that she ran away from home and did not contact her family. Wasn't that saying that she was a problem girl? How could a problem girl who ran away from home for a year be a good student? Of course not. Listen, how treacherous. More importantly, she not only tricked her, but also explained why she lost her composure. That's why she said that her ability to speak with hidden meanings had improved. However, Ying might be able to hide it from her classmates, but it was impossible to hide it from Teacher Tong, who was a teacher at her age. At this moment, Teacher Tong vaguely understood why Principal Chow had placed Yi Qian in Class 6 and not Class 1. The reason was right in front of her eyes. It was a far-fetched explanation, but at least most of the students believed it. Of all the things she should never have done, she should never have belittled her own classmate in secret. Moreover, she was her own sister. Teacher Tong's impression of Yi Ying immediately turned negative after meeting her for the first time. She adjusted her glasses and did not look at Yi Ying, who stood up. Instead, she smiled at Yi Qian and said, "Introduce yourself first." She saw that Yi Qian was still smiling calmly. He did not panic because of the unexpected situation. Even his expression did not change. He was calm and composed. A trace of a smile appeared on her stern face. How could she not have noticed when Yi Ying was secretly insulting her? She did not directly confront her, but only smiled at her. Sometimes, a smile was the best weapon. It represented tolerance, cultivation, and a person's character. Then he added, "I believe there are many students here who would be very willing to communicate with you." This sentence undoubtedly expressed the teacher's attitude. The hidden meaning was, the teacher will support you. It was unknown how many of the 59 students could understand. At the very least, Yi Jian and Yi Ying both understood what he was saying. Yi Ying's breathing quickened. She bit her lower lip and tried her best to calm herself down. She slowly sat down and no longer looked at the podium. In her mind, she was thinking about how to change her image and destroy Yi Qian's image. On the stage, Yi Qian's smile was like the sunlight falling on the leaves outside the window, bright and lively. Hello everyone, I am Yi Qian, a transfer student. After taking a break from school for a year and taking the senior high school entrance examination in June this year, she re-entered the provincial first high school. Considering her age, I think it's more appropriate for her to enter the second year of high school. When the atmosphere was a little tense, a humorous remark was made. With Jiasun as the leader, laughter was heard, breaking the tension, and the atmosphere was lively again. I am fortunate enough to be assigned to Class 1 and interact with all of you. This is fate. In the future, if there is anything I don't understand in my studies, I hope everyone can help me. Thank you. It was a simple introduction, but it revealed all the important things about her. First, she took a year off from school. Second, she took the high school entrance exam this year. Third, she skipped a grade. Chapter 395. He did not praise her for skipping a grade. Instead, he used an indifferent tone and said that it was just a matter of age to downplay her ability. Yiqian could be described with two idioms: deep as a lake and high as a mountain, open-minded as a valley. Before Yiqian could walk down from the podium, and Jiasin, who could not restrain her joy, stood up with a proud expression amidst the applause. Her voice rose and fell as she said, "Yiqian is really amazing. When I was in the same class as her, the seniors in the third year of junior high would come to her if they did not understand anything. Also, her memory is very good. She only flipped through a book? Oh, this political book? She only needed to flip through it once to remember everything." With her saying this, the other students' voices also became louder. A boy stood up and stared at Yiqian with sparkling eyes. I know, Yiqian, I know who you are. You won the gold medal in the World Mathematical Olympiad 2 years ago. In the oral questions, you always finished first and won time for our contestants. I also know that you were studying in Anyang High School last year. However, on the day of the report, you did not want to be an auditing student and could not accept the school's framing of you. So, in a fit of anger, you domineeringly tore up the notice. I also, amidst the adoring voices of the boys, some of them were so happy that they began to bang the table. Classmate Yiqian, I also know you. Only you would dare to tear up the notice so domineeringly. Because you have the confidence. I really did not expect that I would be in the same school as Yiqian. Oh my God, I have to tell my parents when I go back. So you dropped out of school. We all thought you changed schools. All the voices in Yi Ying's ears were ear-piercing and driving her crazy. Under the desk, her hands tightly grasped the corners of her skirt, and the corners of her eyes were bloodshot. Yiqian, damn thing. She was my nemesis. She was born to be my nemesis. Why did she come back? Why did she come back? What shameful things did she do again? What underhanded methods did she use to get into number 1 middle school? She should not be in number 1 middle school. She should not be standing in the classroom. What right did she have to be praised by her classmates and teachers? Why? The students' praises for Yi Jian were like a growth stimulant, causing the jealousy in Yi Ying's heart to grow like crazy weeds. Bit by bit, it eroded her rationality, making it harder and harder for her to calm down. The atmosphere of the entire class was stirred up. It was only when Teacher Tong stepped forward that the atmosphere gradually calmed down. She cleared her throat and smiled. You guys can learn more from Yi Jian. If your grades are good and you can be admitted to university after a year of suspension, I won't stop you from taking a break. Teacher Tong's voice was like the last straw, crushing Yi Ying's remaining calmness. Let her go to school with a bang. Amidst the silence, Yi Ying stood up slowly. She glared at Yiqian, who was standing on the podium and receiving all the students' praises. The classroom became even quieter after she stood up. It was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. The students' gazes were all on her. No one understood why she stood up again. Chapter 396. Yiqian, you scored very high in the provincial first high school. How did you get in after taking a year off? All of us worked hard to get in. As for you, even if your results were good, how did you get in without any grades in biology, geography, or sports? Ying asked slowly. Her voice was delicate, and she even had a smile on her face. I'm sorry, I don't mean anything by it. I just want to ask you how you managed to get into the provincial first high school under such difficult circumstances, and even managed to skip a grade and get into the most difficult class one. I'm not targeting you. I just want to be fair and just. Ying wasn't the only one who thought this. She was very smart. She asked the other students who didn't agree and didn't believe that Yi Qian was really that capable. Seeing that a few students nodded in agreement with her words, Yi Qian sneered. Yi Ying, if you're not afraid of embarrassing yourself, then play with her. He looked at all the students with clear eyes, not just Yi Ying. He said calmly, since everyone got in based on their abilities, then I'll do the same. Just as Yi Ying said, I didn't score in biology, geography, or sports. But to me, even if I didn't score in these 3 subjects, it wouldn't affect my entrance exam. It wouldn't be a stumbling block for me to get into the provincial first high school. Before he could continue, a student stood up and said, I believe in Yi Qian. How could someone who relied on his abilities not get into the provincial first high school because he took a year off? With one, there was a second. They all stood up one after another. I believe in him too. I participated in the provincial first high school's entrance exam with Yi Qian 2 years ago. His answers in class were fast and accurate. He never missed a question. His ability from 2 years ago had been influential until now. Those who knew Yi Qian and those who had seen Yi Qian's ability with their own eyes believed in him. Their words were enough to form a high wall against the rumors and slanders. And Jiasin, who had been holding it in for a long time, couldn't hold it in anymore. She rushed to the front of the classroom and said loudly, I'm Yi Qian's junior high school classmate. I guarantee with my life that Yi Qian got into the provincial first high school with his ability. Then she glared at Yi Ying and said through gritted teeth, Yi Ying, you're still the same as when you were in junior high school. Despicable. Saying that they were a family? What a joke. Since when did you treat Yi Qian as family? Your mother did it again and again. If she continued to talk about it, the situation would worsen. Yi Jian did not want to alarm the school leaders on the first day of school, so she smiled and stopped her. Jiasin, let's not talk about the past anymore. Thank you for defending me. Let me talk about it myself. With that, Yi Jian glanced at Yi Ying. Suddenly, she found a look of disappointment in Yi Ying's eyes. Alarm bells went off in Yi Jian's heart and her eyes darkened. Did she miss something? Yi Qian glanced at Teacher Tong, who had remained silent and had a serious expression on her face. Yi Qian came to a realization. Knew what she had missed. Yi Ying wanted to expand her influence to the point where even the school's leaders would be alarmed. She wanted to leave a deep impression on the school's leaders that she was a troublemaker on the first day of school. That way, there would be many opportunities to slip away from her. She was a troublemaker. Chapter 397. No, she even included Jiasin in her calculations. As one of the instigators of the conflict, Jiasin, a student whose grades were not as good as Yi Ying's, would also be implicated in this matter and leave the school leaders with a bad impression of her as someone who wanted to stir up trouble. Sure enough, she had improved. This was a trick that killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Yi Jian, who had seen through her trick, faced all her classmates again. She was not afraid in the face of danger. She maintained a faint smile and said word by word seriously, I am qualified to stand here and skip grades because I am qualified to pass the exam with my own strength. And my grades are enough to prove that I entered the provincial first high school fair and square, just like all the other students. Maybe you don't believe it, but that's the truth. I didn't get any extra marks, but I still got into the provincial first high school. This is my ability. Her voice was very calm, but it had a majestic aura. Every word seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, making the hearts of the students tremble slightly. The confident Yi Qian was like an unclimbable mountain, standing tall and lofty. Yi Ying almost laughed out loud when she heard this. You can't even check your grades. How can you be fair and square? That's strange. Yi Ying, didn't you say that you lost your composure because you haven't seen me for more than a year? Why are you now mentioning that you can't even check my grades? Have you checked them? Yi Qian looked at Yi Ying, whose face was beginning to stiffen, with confusion. He asked her in a casual tone, there's something I don't quite understand. Only I know my student ID. Only the teachers can check a student's grades. Ying, may I ask, how do you know that you can't check my grades? You know to check my grades, but you don't know if I'm home. Don't you think your words are contradictory? Yi Ying was not the only one who had improved. In the year that he had not seen her, Yi Qian knew better how to retaliate against Yi Ying. He had seen through her tricks, so he just had to deal with it calmly. The students' gazes were all dark and unclear. They were all second-year high school students and were only a year or two away from adulthood. They more or less knew what they should know. At this moment, even the most insensitive of students could see that something was wrong with Yi Ying. He was obviously making fun of Yi Qian. "I'm just worried about whether you're back or not, so I wanted to check your results. After all, you had your reasons for dropping out of school last year. You don't have to be so nervous. Just tell us that you can rely on your own strength." Yi Ying's face was extremely stiff. Even her cheeks were frozen. Her gaze flickered unnaturally as she avoided the main point and said, "I also believe in my sister's ability, but you have to stand out and explain. Let the other students know that you entered the school fairly and justly." This matter could not be explained clearly. Even if Yi Qian relied on his own abilities to pass the exam, he knew that today would definitely leave a seed of doubt in the hearts of some of his classmates. His high school life would not be too peaceful. The corners of Yi Qian's mouth curled up slightly. He said with a faint smile, "It's true that my results can't be found. It's not because I didn't pass, but because someone framed me last year. Just in case, the Provincial Education Bureau hid my results." After he finished speaking, he leaned slightly to the side and said to Teacher Tong, "Teacher Tong, I have a presumptuous request. Can you show me my middle school entrance exam so that Yi Ying can rest assured?" He was not angry, nor did he criticize Yi Ying's actions. It was just a pure explanation. There was no trace of anger at all. Chapter 398. This was using gentleness to overcome strength. Using gentleness to resist the other party's aggressiveness. Who was cute, who was hateful, who was easier to get along with. As long as the students weren't blind, they could tell. Teacher Tong liked Yi Qian more and more. She was gentle but firm. She was neither anxious nor impatient, and she had the demeanor of a noble. When she heard what Teacher Tong said, she smiled and said, "I have already prepared for this." The general consensus for this year's middle school exams is that they are very difficult. We have seen them too. It can be said that this is the most difficult exam in the last 5 years. Teacher Tong opened the drawer of the podium and took out a craft paper folder. Inside it was Yi Qian's exam paper. Student Yi Qian did such a difficult exam and achieved 4th place in the province without 3 additional points. This kind of result is more than enough to get into our provincial number 1 middle school. After Tong Laoxian finished speaking, everyone in the class sucked in a breath of cold air. 4th place in the province without 3 additional points. Was this a perfect score for every exam? The classroom was silent. Not a single student whispered or looked at Yi Qian with suspicion. It was unbelievable. It was completely unimaginable. She actually managed to get 4th place in the province in the middle school exams. Yi Qian used her ability to tell the class that she used her results to get into the provincial number 1 middle school. Who would dare to question her? Who would dare to doubt her? Other than the 3 points deducted for the essay, student Yi Qian got full marks for every exam. If she had those 3 results, she would definitely be the provincial number 1 middle school student. As Teacher Tong spoke, she walked down from the podium and placed the test paper on Yi Ying's desk. She sighed and said, "You children, if even the test is not fair and impartial, then the entire education system will fall into a state of eternal damnation." After 10 years of hard work, student Yi Qian has already experienced unfair treatment once. However, she is not discouraged. She used her ability to win another chance to go to school. "Come, Yi Ying, your results are not bad. Let's take a look at the math questions first. Then, close the exam paper and go to the blackboard to solve the geometry question again." When Yi Ying received the test paper, her face was as colorful as a dye house, intertwining with each other. Gradually, tears welled up in her eyes. She looked at Teacher Tong and sobbed, "Teacher, I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I just want to know why." "Yi Ying, if you want to know why, I have no objections. However, your actions have once again hurt a student who has already been treated unfairly. So, your apology is not to the teacher, but to Yi Qian. In Teacher Tong's eyes, Yi Ying's tears were not worth forgiving or sympathizing with if the tears were just to hide her own darkness. He placed the other physics paper in front of a boy in the first year of high school. The chemistry paper was placed in the hands of a boy who also had good grades. Then he placed the language paper in front of a girl. Come and take a look. Fairness and justice are in the papers in your hands. As for why student Yi Qian skipped a grade to become a second year of high school, I didn't want to add more pressure on you. But now, I can tell you that Yi Qian took this year's college entrance exam and passed it in the same amount of time. Her results will not be a problem at all. How many of you can be like her, passing a second-year exam after only 1 year of high school? Most importantly, Yi Qian even took a year off from school. Chapter 399. Hearing this, Ying almost tore the test paper in her hand in half. The shock on her face was even greater. Her eyes were fixed on the test paper. What? This wretched girl passed the entrance exam for a second-tier university. Impossible, how could she surpass me? She passed the entrance exam for a second-tier university without even going to high school. Wow, that's amazing. The question sheets are so clean, and so are the rest of the questions. No wonder she participated in the World Mathematical Olympiad. The geometry questions at the back are indeed a bit difficult. If you want me to solve them now, I'll have to give it a try. The girl who sat next to Yi Ying had good grades in science. After seeing Yi Qian's test paper, she couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. She was only impressed by Yi Qian's test paper. She didn't notice that Yi Ying's face was already covered with dark clouds, as if a storm was coming at any time. Yi Qian had already returned to her temporary seat. She was very tall, so she was very eye-catching sitting in the front. In the following self-introductions, the students who walked up to the podium would first take a second look at her before they started. When it was Yi Ying's turn to introduce herself, a boy joked, "We all know you, and we all remember you." Unintentional words were even more hurtful, especially to someone like Yi Ying, who always wanted to show off her superiority. The boy's teasing was like a dagger fiercely stabbing into her heart. It made her the laughingstock of the class. When she came down, she glanced at Yi Qian from the corner of her eyes. She wanted to warn Yi Qian to show that she wasn't afraid. Who knew that Yi Qian didn't even look at her? Instead, he was talking to a girl behind him, with a faint smile on his face. Yi Ying's eyes stung, and she looked away angrily. After sitting down, she was like a proud peacock, using beautiful feathers to disguise herself and hide her insidious heart. The half-an-hour morning self-study session didn't let the 60 students in the class finish their self-introductions. After class, Teacher Tong seemed to have forgotten to let Yi Ying do the questions on the blackboard. When the bell rang, she only said, "The next 2 classes are math exams. Students, you have 10 minutes to prepare yourselves." How was he mentally prepared? It was like a bolt from the blue. Amidst the wailing, Jiasin rushed to Yi Qian as if nothing had happened. She clung onto Yi Qian like a koala. "My Jane Eyre, you've kept me in the dark for so long." And Jiasin, who had spent the whole summer watching period dramas, still hadn't gotten over it. Every time she opened her mouth, she would speak in a strange tone. "Why didn't you tell me that day? Tell me, why didn't you tell me?" Yi Qian almost fainted from her strangling. "Because I want to go to high school safely. I don't want anything like last year to happen again, understand?" "You're right. I'm happy now, so I forgive you this time." Being in the same school and class as her good friend again made Jiasin even happier than if she had won a ranking. The smile on Jiasin's face was so wide that her eyes were about to become slits. There were only 10 minutes before class ended, but all the students who came to talk to Yi Qian found that she could accurately say their names after they introduced themselves once. By the time the math and language exams were over, she had already memorized the names of all the students in the class in just one morning. IQ and memory really have to be compared to know who's better. I'm impressed. With her IQ and memory, she could choose from any of the top universities in the country. She's amazing. She can't be compared to her at all. For both exams, she only used one class to hand in the papers. Pressure, pressure. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.